Still in Paris, an exhibition of a very different kind. Held in the Grand Palais, it featured France's finest treasures of Islamic art. The exhibition's twice as big as the last one 6 years ago, and coming after the Mammoth Festival in London only last year, it's proof of Europe's increasing interest in Islamic culture. After spending so much time at Century, it was perhaps understandable that we made our way first to the displays of military hardware from another age. This was last worn in the 17th century in India. Turkish and Afghan warriors had conquered the subcontinent in the 12th century, bringing with them Islamic faith and culture and founding the Mughal Empire, which flourished for 500 years. They carved out the basis of a civilization which eventually became one of the most refined and brilliant the world has ever seen. Its crowning achievement, and its memorial, is of course the Taj Mahal. The Arabs were great gunsmiths. This 18th century flintlock comes from the Atlas Mountains in Morocco. It's made of wood, silver, bone, iron and brass. And though it would certainly have taken pride of place on ceremonial occasions, it was made as a working model. This powder horn is also Moroccan, but a century later. It's typical that even functional objects like this are highly decorated examples of Islamic art. More Mughal treasures. This khanjar, or dagger, has a handle of carved rock crystal. It's 17th century, though inferior craftsmanship on the other side of the blade indicates additional work at a later period. This horse-headed dagger is again 17th century Mughal. The handle's jade, encrusted with gold, rubies and emeralds. And the superb craftsmanship's carried through to the blade, which is damascene steel. Same period, but it's uncertain whether this knife came from India or Iran. The handle's ivory, but not ivory from the elephant, which would presumably have been relatively common at the time. It's made instead from walrus tusks. This knife, known as a qatar, is 18th century and is very definitely from India, since the design existed nowhere else. It probably originated from very early Hindu cultures. The handle's in jade. There's more jade here, a 17th or 18th century Mughal ring. It was worn by archers on their left thumb to protect it from the twanging bowstring. For hand-to-hand fighting, axes were essential, but still highly decorated. This one's in steel, inlaid with gold, with a copper handle and gilded leather grip. Although this one's probably Mughal, it's based on an Iranian design. In Morocco, in the same period, the 18th century, horsemen even wore gold on their spurs. But the trappings of war, however important, are not the centerpiece of the exhibition. The main emphasis is, of course, on the faith of Islam itself. From Turkey, this 17th century ceramic plaque gives an elevated view of the heart of Islam, the Grand Mosque at Mecca, which all Muslims are called on to visit at least once in their life. And this one shows the mosque at Medina, built on the site of Muhammad's house and sacred to his memory. In the courtyard, a representation of a palm tree, the tree of life throughout most of the Islamic world. The shape of its leaves provide Islamic art with one of its most important motifs. It can be seen here, for example, in this 11th century frieze from Iran. In the lettering, the top of upward strokes clearly branch out into palm-like forms. Sculpture is virtually unknown in Islamic art, and reliefs of this kind are about as near as most artists ever got to it. Portraying human or animal figures was in fact forbidden on any building or document relating to the faith, but it was different outside religious matters. This stone from 12th century Iran formed the side of a staircase, and the design's of special interest because it shows two animals in profile, both sharing the same head, though the head itself is divided into half lion, half sphinx. The motif was common in Roman art, but very unusual in the Islamic world. This one's more typical of the classical Seljuk style from Turkey. For the Turks, fighting animals originally symbolized sexual union between ancestors, though this meaning had probably altered by the 13th century when this lion and bull were carved. Many Islamic motifs came together in the lintel, which grew in decorative importance from the 15th century onwards, especially on the western edge of the Islamic world. Themes from architecture, lettering, and plant life mingle in this 14th century lintel from Morocco. It's in cedar wood. These same decorative themes were used by Islamic craftsmen whenever there was a piece of wood left exposed. They appear, for example, on a much smaller scale in beam supports like this. Here too, it's 14th century cedar wood from Morocco. It was in the mosque, of course, that decorative art reached its high peak. This 18th century panel from Tunisia comes from the mihrab, the special niche or room set aside for prayer. It's made up of 50 porcelain tiles. The mihrab itself is always framed by an arch, and the designs on the panels are likewise dominated by the arch. From 14th century Egypt, a superb lamp in enameled glass with lettering that has almost disappeared into pure decoration. Inscription and decoration are even more entwined in this candlestick from 14th century Iran. 2 centuries earlier, the craftsmanship on this lampshade from a Syrian mosque turned copper almost into lace. Even bronze was given the same delicate and highly ornate appearance. This is a 9th century brazier from Egypt. The open-work body is supported on 3 solid feet, each decorated with a hare, and capped by an eagle holding a snake in its mouth. Islamic pottery was fired at low temperatures, so intact early pieces are rare. More durable, this bronze peacock, moulded and carved, comes from 12th century Spain. Inscriptions on the neck, in Latin and Arabic, claim it for both Christianity and Islam. Human figures like this are rare and untypical. This is a portrayal of a man called Amalé du Derahil, who lived in Yemen in the 2nd century before Christ. Behind it, some 800 years later, a bronze bust of one of the Sassanid kings who ruled from the 3rd to the 7th century AD. Despite the religious aversion to figurative art, Islamic artists did paint portraits. This funeral portrait, done in melted wax, dates from the 3rd century. It comes from Thebes in Egypt. The artist's dedication here says, "May you get all your desires from life's three sets of lips, those of your lover, those of the river, and those of the cup." This is Shah Abbas I of Iran, with one of his pages, in a portrait dated February 10th, 1627. And here, in even greater splendour, is Fatih Ali Shah, Emperor of the Persians and ruler of the Qajar dynasty. That's the last one before the present Pahlavi dynasty. This portrait, dated around 1800, was given to Napoleon's ambassador in Persia and has the kind of naturalistic detail more associated with Western art. If pictorial art like this is untypical, then geometric art like this is absolutely in the mainstream of Islamic tradition. These doors in the Mameluke style are from 14th century Egypt. And as in all abstract Islamic designs, the aim is to empty the mind of any image that could be worshipped and leave it free to reflect on the unfathomable spirit of the divinity. According to Muslim orthodoxy, personal luxury was banned, especially gold, but Quranic teachings weren't always followed. These magnificent gold earrings are from 7th century Syria. Gold was in fact widely used in personal decoration, and there were outstanding jewelers in Egypt, Iran, Syria, Spain, and India. This 12th century Iranian necklace consists of 33 separate pieces of filigree gold. It was a gift of the Iranian government to French President Charles de Gaulle in 1963. These 19th century earrings from Morocco reveal a strong Spanish influence. They're in engraved gold and decorated with pearls and a variety of precious stones. Also Moroccan, these late 16th century pendants with, once again, gold, pearls, emeralds, and amethysts. This 14th century bracelet contains several minor mysteries. The style's Central Asian, but the animal heads are Baroque, with ears recalling Scythian designs of 2,500 years ago. And here's more Moroccan jewellery that reflects Spanish styles. It's late 16th century filigree gold and precious stones. The Peacock pendant is Andalusian in origin. Precious stones were often used in other luxury objects. This rock crystal bowl, probably from 17th century India, is encrusted with sapphires, emeralds, and rubies, as well as gold wire. There were many variations on this theme, the most common material being green jade. No display of Islamic treasures would be complete without at least some examples of the culture's consuming interest in science and mathematics. For centuries, Arab astrologers and astronomers were among the most advanced in the world. This Iranian globe, exquisitely made in copper, is possibly as early as 7th century. But the instrument which perhaps best sums up Islamic science is the Astrolabe. Apart from performing strictly scientific calculations, it also worked out that prime essential of Islamic culture, the hours of prayer.